Welcome back to another very special Andrew Says. I almost forgot the name of my show because I almost said Danny Mullen. He's our guest today. How are you, Danny? Thanks for joining me.
No problem. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Andrew.
This is just a monumental occasion. You got a couple of big fans here, myself and an editor named Lincoln. He considers himself part of the Danny Mullen, I think it's Legion, if I'm correct? Regime. Excuse me, Regime.
Whatever. But shout out to Lincoln. Thank you.
Oh, he's going to love that. This isn't the first time I think some other people at Rebel News heard of Danny Mullen was when you had an excursion down by the border and ran into our fairly new reporter, Juan, who's been with us for a few months now, I think, doing the Spanish reporting and everything. You want to tell everybody how that happened and what came about? A really funny video. We'll play it over top, but you want to tell us that story?
Yeah, absolutely. So we went down to the Eagle Pass border section of Texas, which is one of the highest volume places as far as illegal immigration. We went down there for the scheduled date of the termination of Title 42. Title 42 was a Trump-era piece of legislation that was basically the last line of defense, keeping the borders from being totally overrun, and the Biden administration was seeking to repeal it. Now, to me, I heard about all this, and I just thought, I have to see it for myself. It sounds like awesome content. And we just wanted to go down there and cover it. And covering it, in my case, it's a little less professional than the squad of Rebel News as far as their definition of covering an event. So we went down there with coyote costumes and an inflatable raft because we planned on crossing the Rio Grande into Mexico, actually. I ended up getting tackled by Border Patrol. It was a very immature display, but at some point we ran into Juan from Rebel News, and he pointed out to us that there was this giant congregation of law enforcement, Border Patrol, and media. And it was Juan who pointed out to us that, hey, I've been reporting on this sector of the border for months and months, and I've never seen it this heavily protected. It's BS. They're just putting on a show for the media. And I don't like it because they're trying to give the citizens in America the idea that these borders are secure, and they're actually not. So that really fired me up. I went right to City Hall where the governor of Texas was giving a speech in a coyote costume with my whole crew. And we really made quite a spectacle out there. And one of my favorite moments with the young Juan from Rebel News is when somebody, a police officer or a journalist, asked us who we were and who we were with. I shouted it out without thinking, "We're with Rebel News, mother effer!" And you could see in the background Juan going, "No, they're not with us. They're not with us." Panic. But he did the right thing. But I think since that video came out, Rebel News was actually proud to have us claiming we were with them. So Juan, if he could do it again, I think he would. The gesture would be more something like, "Yes, they're with us. They're our newest correspondents."
Maybe he's
He's new.
He might have been thrown off by telling him to chug the beer right away. But he's a nice boy.
We did try to make him chug a beer. Yeah, we tried to get him drunk. We did.
he's more professional than I. I probably would have just drank and said, "Who cares?" Danny, watching I knew who you were. I saw you on NELK vids, and then ever since this Juan stuff, it's just been nonstop binging your channel. My girlfriend and I watched the one where you raided the women's march and pretended that I think it's your girlfriend, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
That you beat her up. My girlfriend loved that. She's like, "This is something that you would make me do," and it just really takes me back to my YouTube days, causing a muck in libraries and stuff, and really bothering people around where I do. And it just made me think of, how did you get started doing this? I don't know when your channel exactly started, but was it always just, let's just go and do this excursion and we'll just make content out of it? Because the content is really you, and you have all the guys you're doing with, and I want to ask you about Leo later, but the content is just, you're going to go somewhere and you're going to make it a good video. Is that how it always was?
Yeah, I like to now think that we have enough of a team in place, and I've done this long enough that when we go out to a place, it's not just, hey, let's be buffoons in public. I try to have some sort of idea behind it. like the Title 42 video we did. It's called The U.S.-Mexico Border is a Disaster. It's one of my favorites. It's us being super immature, sex jokes, really low-level humor. But around it, we're doing some serious, sort of serious journalism. The same with the WNBA game. We're investigating a sporting event that most people have some ideas about and have heard of, but they don't know what it really looks like on the inside. And that's where we come in. We get courtside seats, show up in fur coats, and that night, as you know, we actually end up getting arrested. But it started off a little. I still, from time to time, will go back and private old videos of mine because at the very start, I was getting used to the grind of putting out a YouTube video every week, which is probably not a healthy work schedule to have. And in no other forms of media do people have to put out content every week of the year without break. I mean, think about a sitcom or films where people have breaks scheduled in and vacations. We don't. And I used to just be like, all right, I put out 42 pieces of content in a row. I slept 3 hours last night. I'm losing my mind. Let's go into a Walmart and make loud noises until we get kicked out. That's how it was a little bit in the beginning, and I'm not proud of that. And I'm trying to move in the direction where, hey, now we're gonna get kicked out by Border Patrol in a coyote costume while we're trying to make a young reporter shotgun a beer.
Well, whatever it is, Danny, it's working. Let me tell you, and
Thank you, man.
I really envy you. Now I want to ask you about Leo. I've got so many questions. I want to ask you about Leo.
He is a homosexual.
Okay.
Yeah, he is. He's come out of the closet. That was really. I'm sorry, it's early, and I'm just saying stupid stuff. I'm sorry.
If there's a show on Rebel News to say that on, I think it's this one.
Right.
So for a few videos I'm watching it, and you keep saying he's from The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, I'm just like, oh, that's just a funny joke. And I'm like, is he actually from The Bachelorette? And I search it up, and he was funny on that. I saw the highlights of that. How did you guys begin to cross paths?
Yeah, so him and I met in Los Angeles at a social media little sketch comedy event that was going on. A buddy of ours who was directing a stupid Facebook sketch had us both on set, and we met there. And I saw the potential of Leo immediately just based on his look for all these things we could do with a guy who looks like he should be on the cover of a romance novel. But right after we did that shoot, though, he got cast on The Bachelorette.
Okay.
And I was bummed because I was like, oh, he's a reality television star now. There's no way he's going to collaborate with me, this guy who has, at the time, I don't know, 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. But thank God that Leandro DiTavio was canceled for sending inappropriate texts to a woman in 2012. They dug those up. It destroyed his reputation in the reality television universe. And he was mine again. He was ready to come back to me because he would never get cast in another mainstream television show until the day he died. So,
which is odd because there's so many reality shows where there's just like, what's that one where they go to the island and is it still Temptation Island? I'm not sure if it's still that. Yeah. And they basically just cheat on their spouses the whole time. But Leo sends some text, and that's unacceptable for this genre now.
Yeah, isn't that strange? The things that are okay and not okay. Like I recently got canceled. It was about a year ago for saying insensitive comments about overweight people on a podcast. I was riffing. It was clearly a joke. I said something about overweight women and how they should be treated. It involved a samurai sword, and it was clearly a joke. I don't believe any of that. But it resulted in mass backlash, the worst cancellation we've ever had. But sort of like what you're alluding to, Andrew, is there are tiers of cancellation. The worst you could get pegged with is racism. After that, maybe sexual assault or sexual misconduct. Fat is way down the list. Fat shaming. So the whole time, I couldn't even believe it. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm getting canceled for fat shaming. That's the best kind of cancellation. I love this, and it really allowed me to lean into it.
When you reference that, I looked it up, and there is a change.org petition against you. I don't think it's got any steam left behind it. It faltered at like 50,000 or something, I want to say. So everybody go and sign
Yes.
that. Get it right on that.
Absolutely.
We'll put that on
And
screen.
a lot of the names were just not even clever joke names too. It was clearly my fans. I think signed about 25% of those signatures with names like Harry Nutsack and Long Cock. That was a lot of those names, I want to point out. So they're not as close to their goal as it may seem.
It's inflated a little bit, we'll call it.
Yes.
I just love when you guys are teaming up and you're really, I think you guys leaned into the pretending to be somebody harder than anyone I've ever seen, and that's what makes it so funny when you guys pretend to be the single A baseball players, for example.
Yeah.
And I think, and you did that with a hockey team as well. And it's just, in this small town, people just one, accept that you guys are probably from this team, and two, you just go into like a restaurant and be like, we're from this team. You can't even skate, by the way. I don't want to point that out. But they somehow are just like, yeah, he's from, I forget what they're called, the
Stockton Heat.
Stockton Heat, yeah. It used to be in Canada, that team. That's why I remembered it. But oh man, it's good.
Yeah, they're assholes, by the way. They tried to copyright strike that video, and we won through the YouTube system. But yeah, the key to pretending you're somebody you're not, I think, again, it helps to have Leo around, who's just this giant, good-looking dude. And people, they take a look at Leo, and they're like, this guy is too big and too handsome to be fooling around on YouTube. It must be legitimate, whatever he's telling us. So in the cases you referenced, he must be a real minor league ball player or a real minor league hockey player. And then me, I come in with the jargon. It's all bullshit, but I can tell you what size skate blade I have. I can tell you the proper defensive formation when we played the Monterey Bald Eagles in another minor league hockey. I have all those things at the tip of my tongue. So after 30 seconds of interacting with us, they're like, all right, I guess these guys are real minor league athletes. We'll give them a free Frappuccino at our Starbucks.
And then Leo always busts out like a Cuban accent whenever you're in those situations too.
He's got that down, yeah.
It's very good. Another staple, I think, and I know that I'm running through things here, but is your wrestling and jiu-jitsu. It's always impressive to watch people challenge you. It's one of my favorite parts of your videos. And there was this one guy, I forget, it might have been at it was at the marathon race where one guy seemed like he really thought he could beat you. You do have jiu-jitsu training, I can tell that. I'm pretty sure. Am I wrong?
Yeah, that'd be impressive if I didn't, and I just somehow was able to lock people up in triangles. Yeah, I do train Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I've been a purple belt for way too long. But yeah, I try to train 3 times a week down here in LA.
And where do you train?
I don't want to say that.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't want some wacko showing up with a sign when I'm just trying to lay low in the middle of class.
That's fair. I'm just a big MMA fan, so I was wondering from that regard. How did you? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's a good gym. I train with good guys, but
it's a good bit too.
When
your fans really want to wrestle you, that's always a good time. Another thing I wanted to ask you about is how you got involved with NELK. They sort of bring you in as, like you mentioned, the maximum level bullshitter, CIA guy, FBI guy, Sasquatch video, I think you were in.
Yeah.
How'd you end up getting that gig, let's call it, or how did you just end up hooking up with them to do videos?
Yeah, so they are very responsible for my early YouTube success. They saw my videos when I was doing those things I referenced earlier, the immature, hey, I'm out of ideas, let's get herded out of a Walmart. Unfortunately, that's what I was doing. They saw something there that they liked, and they requested that I write them a couple of ideas. So I sent them a list of 4 ideas, one of which was based on an SNL sketch to go be a pepper boy at a restaurant, like a super nervous pepper boy, and just pepper up people's dishes who don't require pepper on that dish, who don't want pepper on that dish. And then the other idea, I forget 2 of the ideas, but the other one I wrote them was actually a rehash of an old Man Show bit with Adam Carolla and Jimmy Kimmel to show up at the airport dressed in pilot gear and then start getting visibly hammered in an airport bar.
Yeah.
So we did that bit, and I don't think I told them that I nicked that from the Man Show. I pretended it was an original idea. But we did both of those sketches, and the Pepper Boy went over okay. The Drunk Pilots went over really, really well, and that solidified my relationship to them. And ever since, they've been calling in when they need, as you said, a master bullshitter. And the last two occasions where my services were needed, where, yeah, I was the FBI agent who rolled in on a Humvee to arrest some mark they found up in like the upper Michigan Peninsula who was a Bigfoot expert. Yeah, they found just some wacko who was the world's foremost Bigfoot expert, whatever that means up there in that region. And yeah, I came in. You can watch the video. That'll probably be better than me explaining it. The newest NELK Bigfoot video. And then recently I was a wedding planner.
Right.
A wedding planner at a fake wedding where they were also pranking some poor guy. I'm versatile.
I remember all those. You mentioned the Man Show. I think we're somewhat close to the same age, so I'm glad to get all these references. But I saw Adam Carolla, I think, on Fox yesterday, and I'm just thinking, wow, him and Jimmy Kimmel really went separate ways. I wonder if they just have this relationship where they don't talk to each other about anything related to politics, or even if they talk at all, because they don't badmouth each other, but they completely went in opposite directions. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just about to bring that up, too. Adam was one of my first comedy idols. Him on Loveline. There's a channel called Loveline Clips, I think. It used to be called Popular. Now it's just Loveline Clips. You can select any random Adam Carolla episode from 1997 to 2004, and he will make you laugh harder than most comedy specials on Netflix. I mean, maybe you'll stumble across a Bill Burr or Louis C.K. special that's better. But Adam Carolla is almost as funny as those guys, totally unscripted. And I loved him then, and it's made me so happy that he has basically been the same dude ever since. I mean, he was anti-bullshit back in the day when he was on Loveline, overtaxation of people, against crime, against people raising their kids like knuckleheads. And today that's become like, I mean, you're basically a Nazi if you say any of those things in public. He hasn't backed down from that. I still listen to his show every morning, the Adam Carolla Show, and it's great. Jimmy Kimmel, on the other hand, just had Joe Biden on his program and was referring to Joe Biden and the Democratic Party as we, and asking America why, or asking aloud why people aren't with us, and pondering why people can't understand, like, why what Joe Biden is doing in the White House is really great right now. Why can't people understand that? So yeah, it's sad to see. And I think Adam's got to ask Jimmy, like, this is bullshit, right? You're just doing this so you can stay on a primetime program, so you can keep your advertisers and your guests. You don't believe any of this, right? Because I don't think there's any way that Jimmy Kimmel can sincerely believe what he's saying night after night.
Well, you mentioned the part where they talk about, like, we, and I think it's very important for Hollywood and social media like Snapchat and Instagram to present it as if their point of view is the only one, and anybody who differs from that even a little bit is like a really weird and strange and outlying person. I think that's what a lot of it relies on, especially in the late night talk show world, where they all pretty much say the exact same thing. Everybody named Jimmy and James. It's all Jimmy and James, and Stephen Colbert, I guess.
Yeah.
Hard segue, Danny, into how often you're asking people to show you their penis. Planned.
Speaking of,
not planned.
Can you tell your staff to turn their backs real quick, and can you mind popping up and
giving
me a look right now? You mind giving me a look at yours right now? Speaking of.
Oh no. In person only.
Thank you.
I guess we don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
You know, that is a hard segue. That was another thing. Unfortunately, back in those days I referenced earlier, when we didn't have much in the way of material, we went down to San Diego with a character called Fan Jerry in my crew, and we filmed a video that was actually titled "Show Us Your Penis," and we did a lot of asking people, as you can probably imagine, to show us their penis. And unfortunately, that set it off. And it creeps back into my videos from time to time like a cancer. I can't get rid of it.
Oh man, how much reliance is there on, going in there? I know you said that you're doing this planning now, or for the last while. How much reliance is there on events happening? Because I remember when I was doing these types of videos way back in the day now, let's say 2001. No, I'm just kidding. That you kind of have to try to find an event or find like a place to go to. Is that why you find yourself traveling a lot more, or did you guys really just want to go and see more places? Because a lot of the videos are like fattest city in America in Texas, worst
Yeah.
city in California. Did you kind of just want to like get out there and see like more of the country, or did you kind of like follow where events and where things would lead you?
I think both. I just scan the news, read the news. Sometimes things jump out at me. Events. Oh, we could really go piss a lot of people off at this place. But also, there really is something to be said for seeing the country and filming in locations other than Los Angeles. LA is so saturated with dickhead YouTubers, and people are so jaded that when you roll in with the camera, they already have a list of assumptions about you. Wannabe TikTok star, airhead, stupid, not funny, get away from me, I don't want to talk. But when you roll into a business in, say, Anchorage, Alaska, or Boise, Idaho with a camera, it's a novelty. And everybody would love to speak with you. This is their 15 minutes of fame. So it is refreshing to travel and film. It makes it a lot easier. Not on the budget, but it does make it a lot easier to create content.
I keep asking people I talk to from California if they want to leave because the people that are still there. I just had a friend of mine, Patriot J, who's a rapper, lawyer, writer, and everything. He still lives out in California. He doesn't plan on leaving.
It's a
Um,
versatile guy.
yeah, he is. I know, and he's only like
Rapper,
23 years
lawyer,
old.
writer.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's like
Well,
23,
can
dreadlocks.
you be a lawyer at 23? Did this guy skip law school?
Maybe he's older than that, but I think that's possibly 5 years in school. How long does it take?
He might be like, I think Alexander Hamilton was self-studied. I think he passed the bar after like 6 months. So
That
maybe he's like,
happens
I was
sometimes.
Alexander. Yeah,
That happens. You pay like a few grand, you can do it. But is there any desire
yeah.
to leave, or do you just want to make California better? Is there too much good content fodder out there, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't think, at least in my opinion, I don't think there would be a better state to film in. The weather is something you have to consider because
Mm-hmm.
we film almost exclusively outdoors. So a rainy day shuts us down. That's important. Absolutely, the content is tremendous out here. It is such a big state. There are so many different worlds. I mean, a lot of Star Wars, for instance, they turned the geography of California literally into different worlds. I mean, Endor, the sand dunes, all of those locations they filmed at in the original Star Wars is here. And also politically, there are different worlds. You can go to Bakersfield and find the biggest flag saluting MAGA man on the planet, but then you go an hour and a half the other direction and people are lighting American flags on fire. So we have that sort of diversity. The crime's insane, the underworld, the scum. I love documenting that. But it's also beautiful here. I love LA. I love the history of LA. The only real reason to move would be just cheaper real estate and not having to pay 13% income tax, which is a good reason. But I mean, we toyed with the idea of moving to Las Vegas. But what do you have in Las Vegas? You have the Strip, and then you have strip malls.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't. People are going to get bored of me shoving a microphone in the face of a drunken tourist and then go and like hanging out in front of a Chili's. There's not enough content in these low tax states. So for now, remaining in Los Angeles is the plan.
Yeah, not to mention if you get kicked out of one of those casinos, they're all gonna ban you forever. I feel like because I think they
They're
have.
all owned by three people. Like three companies own all the casinos. So
I
yeah,
didn't
that's
know
true.
that.
Hmm.
How hardcore are you willing to go into a political scenario? And but what I mean by that is you went to Evergreen College. I don't think you guys weren't in any physical danger at the time. The people were wonderful there. In in that video, just the kid who lets you pop his pimple. That was that was
In order to fight white supremacy, of course, because it was
yes.
a whitehead. Uh,
But Could we see Danny Mullen and Leo going to like Seattle during an Antifa riot or something like that? Or do you want to get that dangerous, or is it best for you to not, get into a place where you could actually get assaulted by a group of nerds?
Yeah, I would prefer to not get assaulted, but I'm willing to get assaulted.
Okay.
Where it gets a little hairy is I don't want my cameraman or somebody else in my crew to get hurt because they aren't as in. I mean, this is their job and it's my life, so that's the difference. So I'm willing to get hurt, but I don't want them to get hurt. It's really the Antifa, the nerds, the liberals. They don't scare me. In Los Angeles, it's just people who are on the fringe of homelessness who can't really do the mental arithmetic. If I kill this guy, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. Those are the scary people. I mean, I was just reading an article in the LA Times the other day where a guy's down in Long Beach right now, walking into 7-Elevens, holding up the register for $322, and then just smoking the clerk after he takes the money. Just armed robbery, life in prison automatically. He thinks it's worth it for a couple $100. And that's what scares me. People who are just so out of touch with reality that they will kill you over nothing. And down here in Los Angeles, unfortunately, there are a lot of those people. And they scare me more than anything.
Have you ever done one in another country yet?
No, I'm not really too interested. I mean, I used to think that we would be safe if we went to Canada, the UK, or Australia. But as you know, I mean, Canada especially, free speech isn't really a thing, and their prime minister is a nutcase. I don't really want to get, I don't want to get caught. Like, I don't want to get arrested at a WNBA game or whatever their equivalent is.
Zero
in Canada.
things in Canada of
Yeah,
that.
I'm not sure what kind of like misogynist hate crime they would spin that up into being, and I would be the next Brittany Griner or whatever her name is, locked away for potentially 10 years for something that in America is nothing. So
I think you might. The worst thing that would happen, I think, is you get charged for hate speech, and probably banned from the country. I don't think you're doing jail time. Canada doesn't like putting people in jail even for the worst of crimes. In fact, they did the thing that I think they did in California and New York, where they let a lot of people out during COVID because the prisons were overcrowded, they said.
yeah,
So there's that. I don't think you run the risk of jail time in Canada, especially if you just tell them you identify as something or that you have a certain sexuality or gender. And then I think they'd be confused enough to let you just leave. But the problem would be getting in, frankly. If you don't have 19 vaccinations, I don't know if you can get in right now is the problem. As recently announced was you can never be up to date in Canada. So you're going to need it every 9 months to be considered up to date, which is a great new law as I fix my like 90s hair that I got going here.
It looks great, actually.
Thank you, Danny. I pride myself on the voluminousness of it. And it's not cooperating.
Voluminous.
I need a haircut. I need to go to my barber. Maybe should censor that so that he doesn't get hate mail.
He doesn't get mobbed.
Yeah.
Somebody coming after me, they'll be like, well, I can at least go after maybe Danny will hear about it. But I need to also, but I feel like a hair appointment, especially in LA, it's first of all, you're not going to be able to get in for a week. So that knowing that it's going to take a long time weirdly makes you procrastinate even more because you're like, it's just like it's such delayed gratification. Then I have to drive to the valley of Los Angeles. It really is horrendous. I moved up the street from my old house. So I just recently moved like about a mile. And I thought that's great. I'll go to the same grocery store. I can work out in the same park. My life won't even change. But that mile added nearly 25 minutes to my commute.
Oh, God.
Because every day it's something. A junkie plows into a fire hydrant and floods a city block. Add 15 minutes onto your commute. A high-speed chase ensued with the police, and now there's a shootout at La Brea in La Cienega, and you have to go 30 minutes out of your way. So for me, getting a haircut, I mean, I might as well be crossing into Tijuana to get it done. It's such an effort that's, I'm getting anxiety just thinking about it. I need one as well, though.
See, it's construction or car accident every single day. If there wasn't any of that, my drive to work would be 30, 35 minutes, but every day it's an hour for some reason.
Damn.
Um, and it never gets done. But isn't your haircut like part of who you are? I want to say, like, aren't you recognizable partially because of your haircut?
Yeah, it's a pretty stupid bowl cut right now. And right after it gets cut, I get a wave of shit talk from the fans for like maybe 3 weeks until it grows out into a more natural state. Then they're like, all right, we can stop making fun of his hair. But yeah, I guess when you do what I do, you can't get the traditional like douchebag TikToker perm cut or anything like that. You can't be trying to look hot. So that rules out a bunch of haircuts for me right there. I do jujitsu, so I don't want the hair all down in my face. So that rules out a longer haircut. So I'm really left with just a handful of cuts, and the bowl cut is somehow what I wound up with. I'm not really sure. It's probably
Well,
find a better alternative now that I talk it out.
well, I think society really came into play into your haircut. Like society caught up to your haircut. Now we're seeing it a lot more. I was at a tech conference a couple weeks ago, and there's this guy with a big hockey mullet, shaved side of his head, big permed mullet at the back, selling NFTs. And I go up to him, I'm like, "This is going to be a Canadian bro." And it turns out he was like a Peruvian guy. And he's like, "Yes, you like this hair? It is called the mullet." And I was like, "This is impressive." And his company is called Ugly Bros. Shout out Ugly Bros. Don't get canceled on me.
Shout
Now.
out. Yeah, that was a problem with the mullet too. My hair used to be more mullety, but now Peruvian guys, it's such a big trend that they're rocking it. And every date rapist frat douchebag that I see on the street too, with a pair of pit vipers and a longboard, he's got the mullet now. So I had to transition out of that. That got too big.
Let me just scratch off wearing my pit vipers in my next video. I got them because Filipino American comedian I'm friends with a mullet has been wearing them. I'm like, I need my own pit vipers for.
Tell him he's got to be careful. That's 2 strikes: the pit vipers and the mullet.
Yeah.
But hey, Leo wears pit vipers too, so I'm not
Yes.
hating pit vipers. You can't. You can have like one thing that overlaps with the typical American date rapist frat boy. You don't want like all of your accessories and looks matching them.
I'll have to get rid of the longboard. No, I'm against you in the anti-longboard stance. It is impressive, though. You just randomly do these things in your videos. Like, you just randomly are able to kickflip. And one I watched, you just grab this guy's guitar and start playing it. Maybe you're not, like, amazing at everything, but you do. And that sounds like an insult now that I say
No,
it.
you're right. You're right.
But you know how to do basically everything convincingly. I think that's the point to be, if you want to be like Danny Mullen, be able to do things convincingly. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, an improv teacher of mine once said that when you're not doing improv or comedy, you should just learn about the world. Go to a play, go to a symphony, go to a new restaurant, read a book about a subject you know nothing about, because all of that stuff will serve you in your comedy. If you just have a little surface level knowledge about everything. And that's what you're referring to. I know a little bit about a lot, which is better than being a master at anything.
What really hits home for me is your hatred of the French, being a French Canadian myself, the constant wrecking.
Is it constant? I wouldn't say that's constant.
Not constant, but there's been frequent times where you're saying, let's yell at these French people, and you're just like, Napoleon sucked. Maybe you mentioned like Descartes or something. You have a whole bunch of French references that I myself don't even know, and you're able to fire them off like 6 in a row. This person was the worst person of all time. His influence means nothing to me. And just the poor French, but not actually.
Yeah, I think you're referring to the video cross-dressing in San Francisco, where we
it's
found
more than one,
bus.
Danny. I'm not lying.
I can't even remember the last time we disparaged the French, but
it's not enough.
I was gonna lay into the French right here, but that's the thing. Is I told you I have a shallow amount of knowledge about everything. Well, I've exhausted my anti-French sentiment, so now I'm out of new things. I need to pick up maybe some 1940s era newspapers. I'm sure there's something negative I can find about the French there to
I'll
deepen
just
the well.
I'll just call my dad and be like, Dad, give me a lot of things French people hate. At least in Canada, he hates separatists. Loves his poutine and his Pepsi.
Oh
Do you
yeah,
know what
poutine's big.
Do you know what a Joe Louis is?
A Joe Louis?
Yeah, it's a pastry. There's this big pastry factory in Quebec called Vachon, and they create all these like VCHON. They create all these pastries, basically like Swiss rolls and like pies, like moon pies essentially, but it's called a loon moon here. So there's plenty of fodder that I can just message you if you're ever, for some reason, surrounded by Frenchmen from Quebec.
So poutine's great, but what's the Louis? What is that called again?
Joe Louis, but it's spelled JOS and then Louis with an S. Like Joss Lewis would be a joke we would say when we were kids.
See, that's too deep because you can call somebody a Joe Louis eater and nobody will get it. Like less than 1%
Canadian,
of the audience will get it. So again, we're getting down to like 3% of the audience. Whereas poutine that's highbrow. That's a highbrow insult if you call somebody like a poutine pig in their French. But
what do you mean I'm a poutine pig?
But at least poutine is like one notch above pommes frites. It's a little bit more of a highbrow reference than that. But we're not in the Joe Louis territory, which is just people are going to be scratching their heads. This is the art of insulting the Frenchman.
Pommes frites, apple fries.
I see apple fries. I don't know of. Crepes.
Well, that's what pommes frites means.
Oh, does it? I thought it was just French fries.
No, that's no. We're gonna have to. Next episode, Danny, is just all French stuff.
Yeah, I've been calling people apple fry eaters. That's not even a thing. That's just two words stuck together.
Very good. We'll get a thumbnail with just like a fleur-de-lis. Let's go behind the paywall. Not that we've said anything that we can say anything else that should be paywalled, but we're gonna go behind it anyways. If you guys want the rest of the show, go to rebelnewsplus.com where you'll get the added segments with Danny, with myself, and you know you want it, just $8 a month. It's cheaper than Netflix. It's cheaper than Amazon Prime and other stuff like that, but you'd rather watch us. You'd rather watch me and Ezra Levant. rebelnewsplus.com. We'll see you there. Thanks for watching another episode of Andrew Says. To get the full version of the show with bonus segments, go to rebelnewsplus.com and sign up now.